Yo, what is up? It's JC here for some bracketology, but not even just bracketology, a whole bracket. We're gonna walk through it. This is my second year of bracketology, my third year really being like a big diehard. But hopefully, I've gone hard on this for like the last couple weeks, for like the last few days. I don't want to say weeks. The last few days, I've been going hard on this, comparing resumes, eyeballing stuff. We've just been going through it, so this is pretty calculated. Everything has a reasoning for why it is the way it is, even the seeds below, and you got the whole bracket right here as well, which hopefully I will actually be able to like read because I only have it here on this, so hopefully I'll be able to go through it. But yeah, so we'll just go through some stuff. We'll go through the one seeds, really. That's what we'll start with. We'll go through the seeds, and then we'll go through the matchups, just a little bit, right? Just a little bit. So we got Arizona, pretty undisputed number one overall seed right now. Iowa State has a really, really good resume. They are, I believe, my number 2 overall. Yeah, they're my number 2 overall. Michigan's my number 3 overall, and you have UConn for the number 4 overall. Arizona's just got the best resume in the country. I mean, let's just be real. They got the second best metrics right there knocking on the door now after Michigan's slidey performances, if that makes sense, over the last few days. But yeah, Arizona wins. We got this here. I wish I could put this up, but I really have not a lot of room. So if I want to keep that on there, they got wins over Florida, win at UConn, win over UCLA, it's another quad one. A win over Auburn by a bajillion. A win over Alabama. You got a win over even San Diego State, at Utah, Kansas State, and you also got that win over TCU. They're 5-0 in quad one, 4-0 in quad two. Just a pretty stellar resume. It's the number 1 overall seed. I'm not going to go through every resume, just because we'd be here for a while. But yeah, Arizona, ain't got to go through it too crazy. We kind of know that Arizona's going to be the number 1. Iowa State, yeah, I mean, they've got what is probably the second best win in the country, winning at Mackey by 20-something. Again, I'm not as familiar with these top levels because we just kind of know they're right there. But Iowa State, yeah, they've been absolutely dominant. Michigan, they've been absolutely dominant, but they had a little slide. Almost lost to Penn State. Worst last possession I've ever seen from Penn State. I don't know what they were doing. But Michigan, we know why they're here. They have the best metrics in the country. And by way too much to slide anywhere out past 3, in my opinion. I don't think you can make an argument for UConn. If you really, really want to grasp at straws to make an argument for Nebraska, I think you actually physically can, just because they're undefeated and they have really good wins. But the metrics are too staggering for me to feel like putting Nebraska above them is something that is reliably possible. Or plausible is probably the better word. And then UConn, just pretty firmly the 4th best resume. Let's go through theirs. I'm a little less familiar, again, because they've just kind of set where they are. Their loss is to Arizona. They beat BYU. They won at Kansas. They beat Illinois. They beat Florida. Only 4-1 in quad 1, but still 5-0 in quad 2. They've been pretty dominant this year as well. In the first round, you got Dartmouth rounding out at the 16. They're the Ivy League right now because Yale lost to Princeton. You got Vermont and Merrimack. Vermont's technically not leading right now. This is the one team that I didn't actually pick that's leading right now. Because UMass Lowell, Vermont's 2-0, UMass Lowell's 3-0. So I'm not too worried about it, and their metrics are too much better for me to feel like putting UMass Lowell in. It's probably just going to go right back to Vermont. Merrimack, yep, they're 16. Nichols, the thing that put Nichols out of the first 14 is that they've lost a lot of games to really high-level teams. They lost to Kentucky. They lost to a couple other that I don't exactly remember. Then you got Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and Maryland Eastern Shore. I can't believe these 2 teams are here, but they are. But they're also the lowest, too. So you got St. Louis. St. Louis at 8. I think you could argue really highly. They're like number 21 in the net. They've got a quad 1. No, I don't think they have a... Do they have a quad 1 win? I actually don't remember. Yeah, they do. They're 1-0 in quad 1, 1-1 in quad 2, with their loss being to Stanford. The metrics are great. They have a quad 1 win. I think putting them anywhere below an 8 is a disservice. That's simply put. When we do these 8-9s, let's stagger. Let's go to Miami. Miami. It's an interesting resume. The thing that really hits their resume is that their two losses are Florida and BYU on neutral sites. So those are high-end quad 1A. They don't really have any great wins, but they do have a quad 1 win at Wake Forest. And right now, I think that puts them, and they have good metrics. So I think this puts them firmly in that 9. I would like to give them an 8. I could think you could even theoretically argue a 7, but they're more likely a 9. And I think they should be an 8 or a 9. St. Mary's and St. Louis basically have the same resume, except St. Mary's doesn't have a quad 1 win, where St. Louis does. That's just kind of how it is. St. Mary's also would like for Boise State to get going, because that fell out of a quad 1 loss. That was a quad 1 loss at Boise State. It is no longer. Iowa, strong metrics. We believe that they're very good. I think they've been in the top 25. They have no quad 1 wins. And they lost big to Iowa State. They played close they lost big to Michigan State. They played close with Iowa State. Could have won that game. No one gave them a chance going in, rightfully so. I mean, you see that Iowa State's a 1. But with Iowa State, it really comes down to, or with Iowa, it really comes down to no quad 1 wins. They had a great chance yesterday and Sunday, and they lost to Illinois. They're a 9 seed. That's just what they are. Georgia at 8. Another thing with Georgia, kind of Power 5. St. Louis. They don't have a quad 1 win. Very strong metrics. They don't have a quad 1 win. Their best win is, in fact, Auburn or at South Carolina. Those are their two best wins. Loss to Clemson hurts a little bit, but not too bad, because we're about to talk about Clemson here soon. Still a very, very good team. Winning against Auburn, thankfully they held on. I think genuinely their most impressive win is beating Florida State by 34. That is a quad 2 win by 34 points. I think that's a pretty impressive win there. Also a couple slip-ups, like not beating Georgia Tech by as much as they should, but you kind of get a little bit of leeway with the rivalry game. USC up next. USC used to be a team with strong metrics. Now they're a team with strong resume. It's just because they are a combined 6-3 in quad 1 and 2. That is really good. That gets them a 9 seed. Their best win is Seton Hall in November. Their loss isn't very good. They've been blown out twice, and they lost to Washington. I think they're a 9. I've seen people have them 8. I think I've even seen a 7. I think they're a 9. I think they're a 9. Simply put. UCF, weird to gauge. I had a hard time gauging UCF. UCF, good metrics, good wins, but not great wins. And they also have a loss to Oklahoma State. The loss to Vandy is perfectly fine. Who cares? Also, Oklahoma State by a decent amount. Oklahoma State just beat them. I mean, I was watching that game. It was on, but other games were also on. They got outplayed, simply put, but Oklahoma State is also a tournament team, so it's not too bad. It's a quad 1 loss. It's fine. Their best wins at home. That win over Texas A&M is really good. It's aging really well. I think you could absolutely argue a 7. I just think these 7s are actually really strong. I think they're really strong. I was even looking at this next team here, Auburn. They're a 9, and I actually genuinely see no way that there are 2 seed levels off of St. John's, because their resumes are almost the same. And they have the head-to-head over St. John's, but I just think it's so tight there. I wanted to put Auburn up a seed line, or even 2. I just couldn't do it. But the thing is, St. John's, and the thing, technically, right now, is where I don't love the quadrants and stuff. Auburn is, I believe, currently 1-5 in quad 1. They have 2 quad 2 wins, in which are number 31 in the net, NC State, number 32 in the net, Arkansas. So if both of those teams enter, the top 30 in the next 2 days, they just have 2 more quad 1 wins, and now they have 3 quad 1 wins. But also, what I noticed, what I kind of got to use to justify it, Auburn is a combined 3 and 6 in quad 1 and 2. That's not great. St. John's, we're getting ahead of ourselves a little to make this case because I figure it's a fair thing to argue about. St. John's is a combined 4 and 4 in quad 1 and 2. They also have a quad 3 loss. That's, yep, they do. A pretty bad loss. That's another thing. St. John's has really good results away from home. I mean, like, they almost beat Iowa State, if we want to give them credit for that. They had a chance, absolutely had a chance to beat Iowa State. They lost to Auburn, right? But I think St. John's resume is just stronger. That's why they're there. We'll get to them later, probably briefly, because I already touched on them. Virginia definitely could be a 4. All these 5s could be a 4 or a 6. Like, it's loose. Virginia's just got a good resume. I don't really want to actually talk about them too long because I think it's kind of... Excuse me. I want to unplug this. I think it's kind of just what it is with Virginia. Like, their resume is what it is. Really good metrics. They're number 16 in the net. They're number 15 in KenPom. They're 6 and 2 in quad 1 and 2. It's just high-end wins. It's just the actual wins. Everything on paper looks amazing. Like, looks really good. Definitely a 4 seed. They lost to Virginia Tech. They lost to Butler. Their quad 1 wins are at Texas. At NC State's really strong. Like, I just don't technically love the totality when you go past just the raw numbers. Still enough to be a 5. They're absolutely a 5. I think being a 4, let's get ahead. If they're a 4, I think you can argue them over UNC. I think you can argue them over even Texas Tech. I just think those teams are just a tad bit better when it comes to their qualities of wins. Simply put, Florida, I expect them to keep rising. They were just like an 8 a couple days ago, and then they come through, they get unranked, and then they beat... Who did they beat? They beat Georgia really big, 15. They beat the crap out of Tennessee. I mean, even when it was a close game for like the first 15 minutes, it didn't feel close. It felt like Florida was going to break away. And boy, did they. They did it right at the end of the first half, and then they beat the crap out of them in the second half. Shout out short hair Boogie Fland. He got that haircut. There's something in the water when it comes to those Florida haircuts. I don't know what it is. I guess Xavier Lee needs to hit the barber. But yeah, Florida at 5. I think the big thing that Florida has going for them is they have 5 losses. Arizona, Duke, UConn are 3 of those 5 losses. Missouri is currently 1 spot off of being a quad 1 loss. So, again, that's what I'm just kind of not going to care about the quadrants at that point. They have a quad 2 loss. It's by 1 spot. Like, it's where I don't love the hard set on those. I don't love it. Clemson also definitely could be a 4 seed. Win over Georgia. Win over... sorry. I really... Some of the results I really like. They have 3 losses. 2 of those losses are a 6-point loss against Bama, where they almost came back massively, and a loss on a game winner to BYU. I think when you can have those strong losses, I know the committee doesn't really care about deficit. I think, at least this early on, that's kind of going to play a little bit of a factor because we don't have full data. If we get to March, yeah, I get not playing deficit mattering too much, also because it's inherently built into the metrics. But that's also where I argue we're going to hear it mentioned. I'm going to mention it later about head-to-head and how much head-to-head matters truly. Head-to-head always is put into the numbers. It always is. I think it's really only a true tiebreaker. I don't think you should be jumping seed lines to get that head-to-head done, or even 1 seed line, frankly. I think it should be basically a head-to-head tiebreaker, or maybe if they're on the seed line, it's really, really close. The thing with Clemson also, they've picked up some really good road wins. Win over Notre Dame, win over Pitt, which is a win that Ohio State didn't get, which is biting them in the rear. Win over at Syracuse, win away from home at a neutral site against Georgia. That's quad 1A currently, by the way, with Georgia 25 in the net. Georgia fell, didn't they? I swear they were higher. But yeah, Clemson, really good wins away from home. Really good performances away from home in general. Except for that loss to Georgetown isn't the best, but it was early. They've made up for it by now. Arkansas. It's a team that they're not doing themselves favors in the metrics. Getting beat bad by Auburn. Playing close with Samford. Playing close with Winthrop. Probably, depending on who you ask, depending on me, they should have lost the game due to technical free throws. But it kind of works its way back. Played really close, almost beat Michigan State in East Lansing. Had a chance against Duke relatively late down the stretch. Houston just worked them. Houston, yeah, that's not one of them. But yeah, you've got some good wins there. It's just a good team. I think it's very firmly a 5 seed right now. I think you could even maybe argue a 6. But I think it's a pretty strong resume. I think right now, if I was ranking teams off how good they are, that would be a 4. I believe Arkansas is pretty good. You look at these 12s. You got Utah Valley. You got High Point, Liberty, Murray State. Pick your 12 seed to beat the 5. But yeah, all those are just really strong resumes from G5 teams. Or, sorry, football brain. I've heard so much about G5s. From mid-majors, all those are just really strong resumes. Good metrics for mid-majors. None of those have a marquee win, but just good teams. We'll see what's up with that. 4 seeds, Alabama. Not doing themselves favors by losing to Sean Miller. But it's still a good team. They're a 4 seed. They have really good... you could argue 5. But I still lean 4. You are currently 5-5 in quad 1 and 2. But those losses are to at Vanderbilt, against Arizona, against Gonzaga, against Purdue. They also have a win at St. John's, which is only getting better by the second, with St. John's picking up 2 quad 1 wins in the last week, and comfortably so as well. You also beat Kentucky. That's a quality win. Beat Clemson. I just think when you look at everything, again, it's kind of the opposite of Virginia. You look at it, you say, how in the world is Virginia not above them? They're higher metrically, they're higher in this. You just kind of get a pass when you lose to those elite teams. You can make of that as you wish. UNC as a 4 as well. Kind of a similar thing. They've got that win at Kentucky. They've got a close win against Wake Forest. You've got the win. You lost at SMU. Just 2 losses on the year. Literally just 2 losses on the year, and they're at SMU and versus Michigan State on a neutral site. Very, very clean losses. You also get those quad 1 wins away from home. And a win at home, or Kansas. Whew, I'm going to pause real quick. Sorry about that, but also not really, because I had talked nonstop for about 18 minutes. Texas Tech. Basically the same thing as Alabama. Your losses are at Illinois. You're against Purdue, against Arkansas, at Houston. Your losses are pretty fine. You also have that win, that neutral site win against Duke. You have another quad 1 win against LSU. I'm sorry. You have another quad 1 win against LSU. You've got just some solid results. It's a 4 seed. I think maybe you could argue Virginia above them. I think that's very valid. I don't know. I just like Tech. I'm a little biased towards them. I just think it's a team that I trust, honestly, in the big games. Trust them to come down with a win down the stretch. Illinois. I mean, Illinois is definitely the top 4, right? Just certainly. They're number 10 in the net. Win against, lost to Alabama, beat Texas Tech, lost to UConn, lost to Nebraska, but you also have a win against Tennessee. You have a win at Ohio State, a win against Missouri, which is apparently important now when you have Florida and Kentucky losing to them. And then you also get that win at Iowa, really kind of capping off what is absolutely the top 4 seed right now. Let me look at those threes. Let me see those threes again. Shoot. Where are they? Yeah, I think you could argue them above a couple, like Michigan State or BYU. I think you could argue that. I think you could. Maybe not BYU. I don't know. BYU is a team that's just firmly on the 3 seed, so I don't really actually know what they've got going on. You look at these 13s, UNCW, UC Irvine, UT Martin, and Tulane. They're kind of, same thing. I don't really got nothing to give you. Martin's up there, despite poor metrics, because a win against Bradley was really big. They've got the highest strength of record, and by a good amount. So I think that just is a little more important than metrics when it comes to these teams down here. 6 seeds, Tennessee, very easily could be a 7. Right now, their saving grace is that win against Houston. Beating Houston is very big. They should thank Kingston Flemings for randomly deciding he wasn't going to shoot in the second half. Tennessee currently 3-5 in quad 1 and 2. That's not bad as a 6 seed. It's, again, that win against Houston. Loss at Syracuse, you're lucky that's up quad 1. Loss at Arkansas, loss at Florida. Loss to Kansas ain't great, but yeah, you're lucky you beat. You're a 6, you're a 7. You're a 7, leaning towards a 6. That's what it is right now. Kansas, similar thing right now. Their resume is funky. But they're also just, this is a situation where I think head-to-head is just absolutely going to play a role. I just feel like I can't in good faith move these two teams and not have Kansas ahead of Tennessee. That is kind of just how it feels right now, and that's how I'm gonna play it. But Kansas, again, they're 6-5 or 5-5, sorry, combined in quad 1 and 2. Lost to Duke, lost to UConn, lost at North Carolina. Their losses are fine. Again, lucky that West Virginia is a quad 1. You are happy that you managed to pull out that win against NC State. You are very, very pleased with that. You're also very, very pleased that you managed to come out of TCU with a win. Their resume would look a little different if they lost those 2 games, because that would be a quad 1 win gone and a quad 2 loss added. If you lost to TCU and NC State, and you very easily could have. You even could have lost to Tennessee if Tennessee didn't just take a big old dump on the court down the stretch. Am I crazy? Who's at Louisville? Sorry. Louisville. Good metrics right now, but I'm just going to be honest. I don't think the precedent of what the committee did with Louisville last year is very helpful for them. I'm just going to say that. Not very helpful. Lost at Arkansas, lost at Tennessee, lost at Stanford, lost at Duke. All besides Stanford. Yeah, okay, losses. Their problem. Indiana's your best win. At Cal Berkeley is your best win. A quad 2 win at home is your 3rd best win. It's just a little iffy. 4-4 in quad 1 and 2. You're a 6 seed. I mean, that's just usually what's going to happen. When you're around 500 in quad 1 and 2 combined, you're going to be around this seed. Maybe not as much later on, but right now. And also, you might notice something about who Louisville is playing. You might notice that I kind of did it on purpose. Just what was going to happen. Yeah, I kind of did it on purpose. Not really. I really didn't. I didn't manipulate anything. I just saw the matchups and saw who couldn't play each other and said, well, I'm going to do it. Villanova at the 6. Villanova's a weird team, to be honest, because they're not as, their metrics have gone down slightly over the last couple of weeks. Lost to Creighton, not looking good after St. John's beat the brakes off of Creighton in their building in Nebraska. But win at Seton Hall, win against Wisconsin's aging well, one of your losses and two of your losses being to Michigan and BYU. Your resume's good. Yeah, you're a 6 seed. That's what you are. I think you're a 6 seed. You got these 11s. They're interesting. George Mason is a team that could get at large. I don't personally have them at large as of right now. I do also have Miami of Ohio ahead of them. Miami of Ohio is right there. I think if it mattered, I would give the nod to Miami of Ohio over New Mexico. The thing is, it doesn't matter because right now they're leading the MAC. And obviously, if they, like, say, if you added a random loss to them, then they wouldn't be leading New Mexico. We'll talk about the bubble probably to end it, I guess, at this rate. But yeah, George Mason, their only loss is at Virginia Tech. So, very good resume for them. They can keep stacking, and that can definitely be an at-large. New Mexico and Kentucky. Okay, well, I'm going to tell you why New Mexico is here. I just think I like their resume better than Stanford. I like their resume better than a team that has a loss in quad 4, 3, and 2. New Mexico also has a good win. The reason why Stanford doesn't get in, even with 3 quad 1 wins, is because the quad 1 wins they're good. At Virginia Tech's really good and really important on this bubble. Virginia Tech would be ahead of them if Stanford didn't win at Virginia Tech. I think even if it was a neutral site, I don't know if I would have given it to them. If it was at Stanford, Virginia Tech would be ahead of Stanford. Winning at Stanford is really, really big. But also one of the more perturbing things is the way they've lost games. They beat Louisville, good for them. They beat St. Louis. That is actually a very important win. That's a quad 1A win. It's a quad 1A win. Louisville's right on the edge of quad 1A. They're not. Their losses just are bad, dude. UNLV, Josh Pastner. No, a little bit disrespected Pastner. Seattle. Some of the deficits by which they win by aren't amazing, but that kind of goes into the metrics. So I'm not going to harp on that. But I also don't love, like, dude, that Notre Dame game is disgusting. It is a quad 2 win. Yes, it is a disgusting game. I just don't think the team is good enough to be in the field. I think sometimes you're going to take some initiative. And that's also where we come to Kentucky, because let's just be real, if the committee was making this field right now, Kentucky would not get left out. And I think that's actually completely fine, to be honest, when you're going through what they've got. I think if you have them first 4, even next 4 out, I understand it completely. But the thing with Kentucky, again, it says quad 3 loss, 1 spot off of it being quad 2. I'm not really going to focus on that. I would be pretty certain that's going to be a quad 2 loss. But again, the thing for Kentucky going is that they lost at Louisville, they lost to Michigan State, they lost to Gonzaga, they lost in Tuscaloosa. All very fine losses. Losing at home to North Carolina is a little less ideal. Thank God for St. John's. Kentucky's only in this field because St. John's picked up 2 quad 1 wins this last week. Just call it how it is. That is exactly how it is. Indiana, they're right outside of a quad 1 win as well. I also think it's good. Like, winning by 24 against Mississippi State is important to Jalen Lowe. You're not going to get the benefit of the doubt on the Jalen Lowe injury because he's going to be out for the rest of the year. We'll see what happens with Jaden Quaintance. But that's also a thing to take into account. When you take into account that they lost to all of these teams, every loss that they have except for Missouri and Alabama was without a guy that is a potential lottery pick, potentially top 5 pick, depending on who you ask. Miami of Ohio, undefeated. It's just hard to grade them a little bit, but I think they're firmly in this 11 line. Indiana and Missouri. 2 different problems. Missouri has really good wins. In Rupp Arena, against Florida, fantastic wins. Problem, their metrics aren't good because they got blown out a couple times by, like, Illinois and Kansas. But another big problem for them is, why did they lose to Ole Miss? Losing to Ole Miss was really, really bad. Frankly put, it was a really, really bad loss to take. You couldn't afford to lose to Ole Miss. I don't say you couldn't afford because you're still sitting in the field, but you were like a 10 seed. Then you lose to Ole Miss. It's just bad loss. They should not have lost that game. I was watching that game alongside like 5 others. They just shouldn't have lost that game. They're just a better team. Ole Miss is not a very good team. Indiana, no quad 1 wins. No quad 1 wins. It's just a problem for them. I don't think they're also below Kentucky, by the way. The thing, Kentucky is actually Are they below Missouri? I don't remember. It doesn't really matter. But Kentucky and Missouri, the top two in this first four out, or last four in, would be playing the first four game. As far as I'm aware, I might be wrong here. They might be eligible to actually play Indiana. But Kentucky ends up playing New Mexico because they can't play Missouri. That's a conference foe. As far as I'm aware, they can't. I might be wrong. Maybe if I am, tell me. But that's my understanding. Not all of this follows exactly how the seed list would go because some of these matchups had to be evaded. Some of these matchups still actually happen, like Seton Hall and NC State. I just couldn't actually properly evade them. So, and it's not that big of a deal for me to like go really reach over a ton of area. I think it's fine. But yeah, Indiana is a 2-4 team in quad 1 and 2 combined, and their best win is Washington. Again, the thing that goes for them, they lost to Rupp, they lost to Louisville on a neutral, and they lost to Nebraska. Like, their losses are fine, so they mostly live. Except for one of them. What was that bad loss again? That loss was Minnesota. That's right. It is what it is for them. But yeah, no quad 1 wins, 2-4 on quad 1 and 2, and no good wins is just it's gonna bring you down here. That's what it's gonna do. Michigan State, just firmly a 3. I don't feel like I really have to go through. They are 14-2, and their 2 losses are to Duke and at Nebraska. You're good. You don't have like elite wins, but you have really good wins, and you have really good metrics. You're on a 3 right now. I think you very well could be a 2. But you could also end up being like a 5. So we'll just see what happens when Michigan State, they're playing Southern Miss, who is just on the edge of the 14 line. Nothing really special about their resume. They would maybe be a 13 if they finish that game against South Carolina. Gonzaga, kind of the same thing. They're just kind of on the 3 line. It doesn't help that they've lost some, or that they played that Seattle U game. They're lucky. They played, I think they might go to Seattle U this week. Wright State, 14 is what it is. I don't really have anything about Gonzaga. Their loss was to Michigan, but yes, it was by 40, but still, they have really good wins as well. They have really good metrics. They're just a 3 because the teams on the 2 have some superb resumes. They're just a 3. It's a ridiculously strong 3. Houston, kind of the same thing. Their only loss right now is Tennessee. It's not a good loss. It's a quad 1B loss. Not quad 1A, but it's still a quad 1 loss, and you're picking up wins. Your metrics aren't amazing yet, but they're also 7-1 in quad 1 and 2. That's going to get you a really, really high seed. That is what that's going to do. Win against Baylor by a pretty good deficit is really good for you. You would maybe be a 4 seed if you didn't. I think even if you won that game by like 1 point, I think Illinois might have jumped, to be honest. And I think Houston's above a couple teams on the 3 line. Like, that's just a really impressive win away from home by that deficit. Especially because you consider away from home, they didn't do well in Players' era. I mean, yes, they went 2-1 or whatever I think it was, but they didn't do well. Yeah, it went 2-1. They didn't do well. They almost lost to Syracuse. They lost to Tennessee. You didn't play a pretty game against Notre Dame either. But ETSU, same thing. They're 14. I don't have anything to talk about really with them. BYU's a 3. They're just kind of a 3. That's what they are. BYU, their loss was to UConn. Their loss was to UConn on a neutral site, which was not really a neutral site. I mean, kind of a neutral site, but not really a neutral site. But you are also 7-1 in quad 1 and 2. That's going to do you really good. Wins away from home as well with Villanova and Clemson. Not the most dominant wins, which kind of keeps you on the 3. Also, I didn't even mention Miami and Wisconsin. Just really good wins away from home. Really good. And then Austin P is here. The 14s might actually have the least relevant thing because they're like middle ground. It's like kind of easier to decipher. They're just here. Seton Hall versus NC State would be a 7-10. Kind of opposite, similar things. NC State's carried by their metrics and what is close, I believe, to a quad 1 win, if I remember correctly. They're 31. They're 5-5 in quad 1 and 2. If we want to play that game with no losses outside of quad 1, they don't even have really anything that's close to a quad 1 win, but good metrics, 0-5 or 5-0. You're just kind of where you are. Did they? Wait, sorry. I felt like they did. I gotta check. Okay. No, but yeah, two good metrics. Seton Hall, 2-2 in quad 1. I think they're a 7. I just think they're a 7. 2-2 in quad 1, 5-2, quad 1 and 2. Your losses to USC and Villanova are pretty okay. You've got some wins away from home against some inferior opponents that you need to win. You also have that win over NC State, but again, they play because what I was going to do is I was going to swap NC State and then Oklahoma State. That would have made it the conference matchup, and then I just left it because I don't think it's that big of a deal. SMU, really strong resume, dude. They actually have a really strong resume. They genuinely do, but they're a 7. It's just kind of tough. You are 24 in the net, SMU, 5-4 in quad 1 and 2. Your losses are also completely fine. At Clemson, at Duke, at Vandy. You also pick up an increasingly good win against Texas A&M, and that win against Mississippi State is improving. Losing LSU was not the best. That's kind of why you are a 7. You would be like a 5 without that loss. Oklahoma State, bad metrics. Frankly, bad metrics and no quad 1 win. Actually, but they have a game that's right on the edge, I believe, which is not very good metrics. But you also are 5-3 in quad 1 and 2 combined. So that win against A&M, you also have a win against A&M, and by a pretty good deficit, increasingly improving. Your other losses at Texas Tech and at Iowa State are completely fine. You have a quality win against UCF. You lost to Oklahoma. You'd be like an 8 right now, probably, without that loss to Oklahoma. Utah State. I just think it's a very strong resume for Utah State, really. They are number 13 in the net. 3-0 in quad 1. For loss to USF is not very good, but I just think that you just have that strong of metrics, and your only loss a quad 1 game. I think a quad 1 game on the road, and it's not like you haven't won on the road. You beat Boise State so bad it fell out of a quad 1 game. That's what happened. So again, Boise State's right there. You beat them bad. You also just beat Colorado State pretty bad too. I think you're 7. There's a reason you're in the top 25. They absolutely should be in the top 25. Texas A&M, win at Auburn. But the problem with A&M, that they shot up with that win. They were like maybe next 4 out or something, and then they won at Auburn. That's huge. That solves a big problem because one of their biggest problems one of A&M's biggest problems is that they have like what in the world is happening? Whatever. I guess I'm going resume-less. As far as I'm aware, I know most of these. Texas A&M, they won at Auburn. That's just a big win for them. Frankly put, that's just a big win for them because one of your problems was getting blown out by Oklahoma State and losing some of these other games. But yeah, now you've got to win at Auburn, and you're like 12-3 or whatever. I have to dome it because for some reason something just happened with the website that I was using, but whatever. 10 seed. They're a 10 seed, firmly, in my opinion. I think maybe you could argue the last 9. I would say 10 seed pretty firmly. Saint. If you want to argue the head-to-head against Auburn, but I think Auburn's resume is just better enough. St. John's, we talked about them earlier with Auburn. They have a pretty good record inside quad 1 and 2. They have really good wins away from home now. Their losses are pretty fine for the most part. Their metrics are really solid. They're a 7 seed. Wisconsin, they have the best one in the country. They're 1-5 in quad 1, no losses outside of quad 1, with the best win in the country though. And metrics that get you on this right side, they're like 40 in the net. They're a 4 seed. They're the top 10 seed. Vanderbilt, I don't have to talk about Vanderbilt. You know what they did, but I guess according to some people, they ain't played nobody, but I really don't care. They are undefeated. They're super high in every metric. They are a 2 seed. Purdue, they are a 2 seed. Their only loss is to a 1 seed in pretty bad fashion. But yes, honestly, if they didn't lose by so much to Iowa State, they might be a 1 over UConn. I don't know. I didn't really check on that because there's not really a point because they are a 2 seed. Nebraska, you're undefeated. Their wins are amazing, actually, like underratedly amazing. They've won at Indiana. They won against Michigan State. They won. Where else did they win? I don't remember. They won at Illinois. They've got some pretty spectacular wins. You've also got some quality wins, like I believe over New Mexico was a win they picked up along the way, which is a very good resume. Duke, they are the top 2 seed, by the way. Nebraska's the top 2, in my opinion. Duke, their only loss is to Texas Tech. They have really good wins in East Lansing. They've got some other really quality wins. They're just a 2 seed. They're frankly a 2 seed. A 2 seed is a resume that clearly still has a tiny hole. Like Nebraska's hole is metrics. Vandy's win is no elite wins, like elite wins. Purdue's they just have a loss and they're just not as good as the ones. The ones are just so elite. Like just one tiny blemish is kind of all it takes for you to be a 2 right now compared to a 1. And you got the 15s with North Dakota State playing Vanderbilt. Long Island, in case you didn't know, I wouldn't blame you, against Purdue. Portland State against Nebraska, and Navy against Duke. I actually almost switched that matchup because I thought Navy already played Duke, and Navy already played North Carolina, and Duke went to Army, not Duke. They're not Navy. The bubble. Like I said, Kentucky, I think, was the first team out, but it doesn't really matter. And then Missouri, and then it was Indiana, and then New Mexico. New Mexico just barely edges out Stanford, Virginia Tech, Ohio State, and TCU. But I also would say that Cal is right there, too. I would say they're the first 5 out, and that's the next 5 out, but that's not how it... I put next 4 out. I'm just realizing that. I was supposed to put next 6 out, but my brain went autopilot. So I put next 4 out. But it's next 6 out, obviously, as you can see, if you can count. Stanford, they're a big problem. Like I said, I already talked about Stanford a little bit. Bad metrics. And bad losses. Terrible losses. Horrific losses. So bad of losses, you're lucky to even be sniffing the field. You're really lucky that you have the wins you do. Funnily enough, they, I believe, were the first team of the year to have a loss inside of Quad 1, Quad 2, Quad 3, and Quad 4, which is always a fun thing to keep track of. Their final quadrant to check off that list was losing in Quad 1. It's just funny. But again, they hold proximity over Virginia Tech because they won at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, I don't love some of their wins. They won at Virginia, but some of their other results are just not quite good enough for them to get in the field. I don't know. Was I actually right about that? Sorry. I'm a little jumbled because I lost the resume stuff for some reason. Ohio State lost to Washington. You had a potential chance to sneak in this field. You lost to Washington. Quad 1 loss, not bad, but it's an opportunity gone for a Quad 1 win. The funny thing about Ohio State is I give them credit for losing really close to really good teams, like UNC. Yes, Nebraska. Who was it? They played a team. No, I messed up. See? But it also giveth and it taketh, because they played really close with Notre Dame. They played really close with some other teams that they really shouldn't have played very close with. Again, hurts. Flips with the metrics. It kind of makes the metrics meet in the middle, and then at that point you're just kind of grading the resume, and the resume just isn't quite good enough. Just barely off. TCU is a weird team. They lost to Notre Dame. They lost to New Orleans. But they also have wins over Florida. They almost beat Michigan, which would assuredly have them in the field. They should have beat Kansas. It's just a wacky team, but they still have a chance. It's a good team. It generally passes the eye test sometimes. Like watching Florida, I'm like, how in the world did this team lose? Like, to New Orleans. Like, this seems good. And then they immediately lost to Notre Dame. It's like, okay, sure. Cal is next. Cal's like inferior Oklahoma State. They don't have a quad. No, they have a quad. I don't remember, but their metrics are really bad. So they're just not there. They also kind of permanently hold proximity over UCLA right now because they beat UCLA. And what was at the time a pretty big upset, and also a game that I watched and I was like, wow, Cal's really good. And then they just kind of, and you also wasted an opportunity against Louisville, in which Stanford picked up. Not only did you lose the game, you lost it by 20, which is not helpful either. Especially when you have limited quad one affairs. UCLA plays itself out of being a quad one win for you, and you lose by 20 in a quad one game. It's not ideal for you. Baylor up next. You're seeing a head-to-head trio here. Baylor beats San Diego State and Creighton, so that's cool. But Baylor, they have an NBA player, but they aren't very good. In fact, they have probably 3 NBA players. You have 2 guys that are probably going to be a first-round pick, and you have a guy that was almost a first-round pick in the previous year, and the team is still not good. I'm very thankful Scott Drew is not the head coach at Kentucky, no matter how bad you think it might be with Pope. But Baylor's just got an interesting resume. You get beat by Houston really badly. You pick up a quad. Do they have a quad one win at this point? I actually don't even know. But their resume is what it is. Not spectacular. It exists. It's enough to be close. You pick up a great win, you can maybe play your way in. It's kind of been, because Missouri wasn't here a second ago, right? There's just Texas A&M wasn't here a second ago. Wisconsin wasn't here a second ago. You can pick up a big win and you can really change how the outlook of your season goes. I just don't believe in Scott Drew right now. The last few years have been pretty bleak for Baylor compared to how much talent they have. San Diego State, they've made their way back around. You're benefiting from your losses being Michigan and Arizona, 2 of your 4 losses, I believe. You're benefiting from that. You're not benefiting from losing to, what was their bad loss? Troy. You're not benefiting from losing to Troy at all. You're getting hurt quite a bit. You would probably be in the field because 2 of your 3 losses at that point would be to elite teams, and I forget what their other loss was, but it was not bad either for the most part. You got some sneaky quality wins in there, I believe. That's just kind of what's going to happen in the Mountain West. That Boise State game was something. I'm not going to go into it. Creighton, you were in the field like a second ago, and then you got beat the crap out of by St. John's. You can't get the crap beaten out of you at home multiple times. It happened against Nebraska. It happened against St. John's. You can't have that happen. You're lucky you won at Villanova. You're very, very fortunate right now. The problem is you're 10-7. You can't be 10-7 and be in the field. You can't. You can be 11-6 and be in the field, but you can't be 10-7 and be in the field. UCLA, UCLA and LSU are basically the same thing. Fine metrics. LSU's are better. UCLA's cool. LSU's are slightly better. LSU has a bad loss. UCLA doesn't have an especially bad loss, but they don't have any good wins to go with not great losses to take. That's just kind of the nature of where things are. You've got some other teams down the bubble as well, like Butler and Notre Dame, and some other teams with growing resumes like Texas, who's made their way onto what would be considered probably almost on the bubble. But yeah, I guess that's it. This went a little longer than I'd hoped, but I went pretty in-depth, so I hope you enjoy. We'll do this. Not this in-depth all the time, but I might drop some seed lists or something on here. But yeah, I hope this graphic looks okay. I think it's readable, and that's what matters. It's readable. It took a while to make. It took way longer to make. I was like, I can maybe throw this. It's not going to take as long because I had to download all the logos. Now all the logos are downloaded, so they'll be fine. But it would still probably take 30 minutes to do from scratch, even with all the logos downloaded. This took 3 hours to do, so I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoy the effort, and I hope you enjoy the analysis, and I hope you enjoy me. That'd be cool if you did. And if you did, then I think you should hit a couple buttons that are down here. I think you should hit a couple of those and maybe comment and yell at me if you want. That's okay. It's fine. I yell at... I won't say I yell at people. If they're really stupid, maybe. I don't consider myself really stupid. But again, if you have any questions, I've done extensive research up to this point. Obviously, things can change. Things are going to change tomorrow. They are. But I guess today, in general, it's past midnight. So, but yeah, that's how it is. I hope the audio is fine. If you have any tips to give, then I would appreciate them. But I hope you enjoyed. And I'll see you next time. Peace out. God bless. Have a great day, great night, whatever. Peace.